Have you ever received an invitation that felt more like a warning? I did. A cream-colored card, gold embossed, addressed to me like a distant obligation, not a mother. Mr. and Mrs. Ryan Richardson request the honor of your presence. My son, my only child, getting married. And this was how I found out. No call, no visit, just a silent announcement delivered to a mailbox I could barely afford to keep. Have you ever asked yourself, at what point does love become invisible? At what point do you stop being part of the story and start asking, is this really my life? The invitation didn't arrive with excitement. It landed like a final notice, neatly creased, thick cardstock, and gold lettering so formal it felt sterile. I turned it over twice before I understood what it said. Ryan, my son, was getting married. Not a text, not a phone call, just a mailed invitation addressed to Ms. Catherine Morris, not mom, not even mother. Like I was a distant relative they had to invite out of formality, the kind you barely know, but still add to the list because etiquette demands it. It sat on my kitchen counter for hours, untouched beside a growing pile of past due notices, rent, utilities, medical copay I'd been putting off. My fridge buzzed like it was tired too. Everything around me screamed survival. And in the middle of that, a country club wedding invitation that probably cost more to print than I spent on groceries that week. I finally picked up the phone and called Ryan. "Oh, hey, Mom," he said, voice distracted. It always sounded that way, like I was an interruption, background noise to a more important life. "You got the invitation?" he asked. I did. "Congratulations, honey. Barbara seems lovely." A pause. "Yeah, she is. Listen, about the wedding. I'm so happy for you both," I interrupted, trying to shift the conversation to something warmer. "When would be a good time to help with planning? I know these things can get expensive, and I've been saving." "Mom, stop." His tone snapped like a rubber band. "We don't need help. Barbara's parents are handling everything. It's all taken care of." "I'm not talking about money, Ryan," I said gently. "I'm talking about being involved. Mother-son dance, picking flowers, tasting the cake, that kind of thing." "We've already done all that." Then came the final blow. "Just show up on the day, okay? Wear something nice, but not too, you know, conservative. Barbara's family is pretty traditional." Something nice, but not too me. I understood exactly what he meant. My discount store wardrobe, my small apartment, my every penny saved for rainy days that never stopped pouring. "Of course," I said, my voice steady, even though something was cracking inside me. "I wouldn't want to embarrass anyone." "It's not about embarrassing, never mind. I have to go. Barbara's making dinner." And just like that, the line went dead. I was alone again, staring at gold script that confirmed what I'd always feared. I was a guest in my son's life, not a part of it. The corner of the invitation read, "Black tie optional." I had nothing black tie. My best dress was navy blue, 5 years old, and bought for his college graduation. That moment, the last time he'd looked at me with something like pride, flickered in my mind. Something inside me whispered, "Try anyway." And even though I didn't know it yet, that decision, quiet, desperate, full of love, would be the beginning of everything changing. I made a promise to myself that night. If I was going to be an outsider, I'd be the most dignified outsider that room had ever seen. Over the next 3 months, I saved every penny. I skipped meals, walked to work instead of taking the bus, cut off cable, ate oatmeal for dinner more times than I'd care to count. By May, I had just enough to do something I hadn't done in years, buy a dress that made me feel seen. It was deep emerald green. Simple, elegant, sleeveless. It whispered confidence without trying too hard. A dress that didn't beg for approval, but deserved it. I bought it from a department store I usually passed without even looking inside. It cost more than a week's groceries, but it was mine. So were the shoes. Modest heels, dark suede. I even splurged on a professional haircut for the first time in years, had the grays blended into a soft chestnut brown. When I looked in the mirror afterward, I barely recognized the woman staring back. She looked respectable, maybe even radiant. Maybe, I thought, Ryan would see me differently too. Maybe I'd walk into that grand ballroom and he'd take a second look. Maybe he'd say, "You look beautiful, Mom," and actually mean it. The morning of the wedding, I stood in front of my bathroom mirror longer than usual. I adjusted the straps, checked the hem, reapplied my lipstick. My hands shook a little. This wasn't just about a dress or a dance. It was hope, stitched into fabric. Hope that all the years of sacrifice and quiet love might finally be acknowledged. When I stepped outside, the air felt too warm for May. The sky was cloudless, brutally honest. My old Honda Civic chugged along faithfully, freshly washed but clearly out of place the moment I pulled into the circular drive of the country club. Luxury cars lined the lot, sleek BMWs, Teslas, spotless Mercedes. My Civic hummed awkwardly, like it had accidentally wandered into a gated dream. Inside, the lobby gleamed with marble and crystal. Every surface shimmered. Laughter echoed high up into the vaulted ceilings, effortless and confident. Women in tailored dresses walked like they belonged. Men sipped cocktails with the ease of people who didn't worry about overdraft fees. I spotted Ryan by the staircase, tuxedoed, handsome, radiant, laughing with Barbara's father like they'd known each other for years. His posture was straight, his smile easy. He looked like a man who'd found exactly where he belonged. I walked toward him, my heels clicking against the polished floor. For a brief moment, our eyes met, and I swear his smile faltered, just slightly. Not from joy, not from pride, but something closer to discomfort. He greeted me with the neutrality of a man unsure whether to hug me or pretend he hadn't seen me. And just like that, I knew. No matter how well I dressed, how gracefully I walked, or how silent I stayed, I was still just a guest. And guests don't belong. They're just tolerated, until the last plate is cleared. "Mom," Ryan said, his voice carefully neutral, not warm, not welcoming, just functional. "You look so handsome," I replied, reaching instinctively to adjust his bow tie, something I'd done hundreds of times when he was small. But now he leaned back, just a little, just enough to create space between us. "Thanks. You look nice." The pause before nice lasted too long, just enough to sting, just enough to tell me everything I needed to know. Barbara's father turned to me with a politician's handshake. "You must be Ryan's mother, Tom Whitmore." "Catherine Morris," I said, offering a practiced smile. "Congratulations on gaining such a wonderful son-in-law." "Indeed." His voice was smooth, practiced. His smile was polite, but hollow. "Ryan tells us you work in insurance?" "I do. Data entry mostly," I replied, careful not to over-explain or apologize. "But today, I'm just the proud mother of the groom." Tom nodded, then turned back to Ryan, launching into a story about a golf trip to Hilton Head. And just like that, I disappeared again, invisible in a room filled with mirrors. The ceremony itself was flawless. Barbara floated down the aisle like she'd stepped out of a bridal magazine. Ryan's eyes never left her. When he said his vows, I heard the tenderness in his voice, the kind I remembered from when he was young and would tell me about his school day in vivid, excited detail. But those words belonged to her now. That softness, that openness. It was for Barbara. That version of Ryan wasn't mine anymore. I sat alone in the third row, tucked behind a cluster of Barbara's relatives. No one had saved me a seat in the front. No one even looked back to see if I was there. It felt like watching a life I used to belong to, now recast with new actors. After the ceremony, as the guests flowed into the reception, I lingered in the chapel, fixing my dress, steadying my breathing. "You can do this," I told myself. "Just smile. Say thank you. Don't let them see you crack. But nothing could have prepared me for what came next. The reception hall was stunning. Crystal stemware, soft candlelight, centerpieces so lush they looked like something out of a movie. I found my name card at table 7, back corner, near the kitchen. The other guests at my table were polite but distant. A great aunt, a couple who looked uncomfortable in their rented suits, and several empty chairs. Even the distant relatives had better seats than me. I glanced toward the front, table 1, where the Whitmores sat, table 2 for Ryan's college buddies, table 3 for Barbara's sorority sisters. I saw the unspoken map of importance and belonging, and I knew exactly where I stood in it. Still, I held on to hope. Maybe when dinner came, he'd stop by. Maybe he'd offer a smile, a quick moment of recognition. But I was wrong. The food arrived, first to the head table, then the front tables, then on and on, table by table. Table 7 was last, of course, and when the server finally reached us, the food was cold. So was Ryan. I told myself the cold food didn't matter, that it wasn't personal, that the kitchen had just made a mistake, but even that small lie couldn't hold for long. The salmon was dry, the asparagus limp, and the potatoes had congealed under a thin film of grease. It wasn't a meal. It was an afterthought, a signal, a reminder that in this new life my son had built, I didn't have a seat at the table. I was lucky to be near it at all. Margaret, Barbara's great aunt, and the only kind person I'd met that evening, leaned over and whispered, "This is inexcusable." Her voice trembled with quiet indignation. But I smiled and said, "It's fine. I'm just happy to be here." I'd said that so many times before, I almost believed it. Then I heard it, clear, unmistakable, Ryan's voice rising over the soft hum of dinner conversation as he joked with Barbara near the head table. "Did you see?" He laughed, gesturing toward my table. "They finally brought my mom her food. She's used to eating what life leaves behind, so she won't mind." Barbara laughed, a light, crystal-sharp sound that felt like it shattered something inside me. Then her friends laughed, then his friends. The joke rippled outward like a crack in glass. I didn't flinch. I didn't cry. I just set my fork down. My hands were steady, my face calm. But inside, something snapped, not loudly, not violently. It broke like paper tearing, quiet, irreversible. Margaret's face turned white. "Did he just—" "I'm fine," I said again, the words ash on my tongue. Then came the speeches. Ryan stood tall, flushed with champagne and praise, holding the mic like he belonged there. He thanked Barbara's parents for their generosity, his college friends for their loyalty, the musicians, the florists, the catering team, everyone who had made the day so special. Everyone but me. No mention of the woman who raised him alone. No word for the mother who'd worked overtime to buy his first laptop. No thanks for the sacrifices that had made this version of Ryan possible. When the applause faded and Ryan kissed his bride, the room shimmered with joy. People wiped tears from their eyes. And I sat there, surrounded by empty chairs, a cold plate, and laughter that no longer included me, wondering if this was what grief felt like. Not the loud kind with sobs and eulogies, but the quiet kind. The kind that slips in during a celebration and reminds you that you've been replaced. I told myself to stay, to smile through it, to be gracious, like a mother should be. But deep inside, a different voice was whispering now. Not the one that said, "Just be happy to be here." No, this one was sharper, clearer. It said, "You don't belong here anymore." The dancing began the way fairy tales usually end. Barbara and Ryan stepped onto the floor like royalty, her dress flowing like silk water, his hands guiding her as though they'd practiced this moment their entire lives. The guests watched with dreamy smiles. The music was soft, sentimental, the kind of moment that lives forever in photo albums. And still, I waited. For the cue, for the glance, for my moment. the mother-son dance, the one thing I thought I was guaranteed. I had imagined it so many times, us swaying together, even for a minute, even awkwardly, a silent acknowledgement that, no matter the distance, I had mattered in this day. But the music changed. Barbara danced with her father, elegant and graceful. Her mother followed, dancing with Ryan. Then came cousins, aunts, uncles, each stepping into the spotlight, each taking their turn. And still, I waited. Minutes passed, songs shifted, the DJ joked between tracks, but no one came for me, not Ryan, not anyone. I sat at my table, feet aching, hands folded neatly in my lap. My emerald dress suddenly felt foolish, too hopeful, too proud. I wasn't just excluded anymore, I was erased. I thought about all the nights I stayed up with Ryan when he was sick. The mornings I woke at 5 a.m. to pack lunches and iron shirts. The time I sold my engagement ring to pay for his summer camp because he had begged to go with his friends. I thought about the algebra tutoring at the kitchen table, the broken car I pushed up the street in winter, the way I cried alone in the parking lot the day I dropped him off at college, because he didn't turn back to wave. And in that ballroom, while laughter echoed and champagne flowed, I realized something I had never allowed myself to feel before. I wasn't just forgotten, I was unwanted. Margaret touched my arm gently. "Are you all right, dear?" I looked around at the joy, at the dancing, at my son wrapped in the warmth of a new life that had no place for me. And for the first time that night, maybe the first time in years, I felt completely clear. "I'm perfect," I said. And this time, I meant it. I stood, smoothed the fabric of my dress one last time, and walked to the coat check. I didn't look back. Not because I didn't care, but because I finally understood what walking forward looked like. No one stopped me. No one noticed. Not Ryan. Not Barbara. Not a single person who had smiled politely while treating me like a ghost. But as I stepped into the lobby, heels tapping against marble, I knew one thing for certain. This chapter was over. And the next one, it would be mine. The drive home was silent. Not the peaceful kind, but the kind where your heartbeat feels like the only sound in the world. No music, no thoughts, just the hum of tires and the slow unraveling of everything I thought I knew. When I stepped inside my apartment, it felt different, smaller somehow, but clearer, as though all the illusions I had packed into that emerald dress had been stripped away. I poured a glass of wine, the good bottle, the one I had been saving for a special occasion that never came, and opened my laptop. I wasn't angry, not in the way Ryan would have expected. I didn't feel rage, I felt precision. A clarity so sharp it felt like glass breaking into perfect, clean edges. I began to write. "Ryan, I'm writing this while your wedding day is still fresh in my memory, though I suspect the details that matter to me are different from the ones you'll remember." The words came fast, but they weren't emotional. They were surgical. I didn't yell. I didn't beg. I explained. I told him about the $500 monthly deposits he thought came from a trust fund, money I had pulled from my paycheck, skipping meals and working overtime so he could save without knowing it. I told him about the credit card I opened in his name for emergencies, which had paid for everything from new tires to a spontaneous vacation he never reimbursed. I told him about the life insurance policy, 12 years of premiums I could barely afford, naming him as beneficiary because I thought protecting him was love. Then I told him something even more important. "I taught you to treat me like this. Every time I accepted less than kindness, less than respect, I showed you I believed I deserved it. I don't believe that anymore." I told him I was canceling everything, the deposits, the policy, the card, and the house. Yes, the house, the one he assumed would be his, the one I had kept in my name, never telling him it was mine alone. It was worth over $340,000, and I plan to sell it within 6 months. I will be using that money to live, not survive, live, travel, rest, Discover who I am without the constant pressure of being useful to someone else. I ended the email with no threats, no bitterness, just truth, cold and clean. You will always be my son, but I will no longer be your safety net. At 3:47 a.m., I hit send. Then I took another sip of wine and started making lists, not of things I needed to buy for Ryan or errands to run, but of cities I wanted to visit, books I wanted to read, and recipes I'd never had time to try. I wasn't angry. I was done. And for the first time in 3 decades, that felt like freedom. Ryan's first email arrived Thursday morning. The subject line read, "Mom, what is this?" It was exactly what I expected. "Are you having some kind of breakdown? I think you misunderstood what happened at the wedding. It was just a joke. Everyone was laughing, not just at you. You're being way too sensitive about this. Can we talk like adults?" He didn't apologize. Not really. He explained, minimized, blamed. I didn't reply. By Saturday, he was angrier, shorter. "Pick up your phone. We need to talk about this house situation before you do something stupid. I talked to a lawyer. You can't just cut me out of my inheritance like this. Call me back." I had changed my phone number the day before. On Sunday, a shift. This time, the tone was polished, curated. Barbara's influence, no doubt. "Catherine, I'm sorry for what I said at the wedding. I was drunk and I wasn't thinking. You know I love you and didn't mean to hurt your feelings. But this is getting out of hand. Barbara's parents are asking questions. This is embarrassing for both of us." He offered to pay me back whatever money you think I'm owed, as if it was a misunderstanding, a clerical error. "Let's just meet for dinner, somewhere nice. We'll talk this out. No drama, just us." I forwarded the email to my realtor and added a single line, "Please expedite the listing." By Tuesday morning, the house was on the market. Showings began the same day. By Thursday, I had 2 offers, one $15,000 over asking, all cash. I accepted immediately. The final email from Ryan came that Sunday. It was short. "You win. I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but congratulations. You've managed to destroy our relationship and humiliate me in front of my new family. I hope whatever point you're trying to make is worth losing your son over. Don't contact me again. I'm done trying to fix whatever's broken in you." I printed that one, not for any legal reason, just to remind myself of who he really was when he thought the money was gone. The house closed July 20th. I signed the papers in a glass-walled conference room that smelled like expensive cologne and fresh leather. No tears, no drama, just signatures, initials, and one final check, $355,000 after fees. The realtor smiled as she handed me the paperwork. "Congratulations," she said. "Big change ahead." She had no idea. That night, I drove past the house one last time. The new owners were already moving in, a young couple with a toddler riding a plastic tricycle in the driveway where Ryan used to shoot hoops. They looked happy. I felt nothing. No sadness. No regret. Just freedom. I wasn't erasing the past. I was closing the door on a chapter that had long stopped serving me. And the silence that followed? It wasn't loneliness. It was peace. I packed lightly, 2 suitcases, a box of books, and my laptop. Everything else, I sold or gave away. After 30 years of living for someone else, I had learned just how little I actually needed. I moved to Savannah. I'd never been before, but something about it called to me. The history, the oak-lined streets, the slow southern pace. It felt like a place where a person could start over without explaining why they had to. My new apartment was 4 blocks from the river. Modest, sunny, and, most importantly, mine. The rent was reasonable. I didn't need a roommate. I didn't need to budget every penny. For the first time, my paycheck was for me. I found a part-time job at a local bookstore. Nothing glamorous, but honest and peaceful. The owner, Rita, was a no-nonsense woman in her 50s who had eyes that had seen heartbreak and still believed in stories. You seem like someone who understands books are more than just pages, she said after our brief interview. Someone who knows what it's like to start over. I started the next morning. The store was quiet most days, which suited me. I read between customers, reorganized the shelves, learned which titles old couples asked for every week, and which poetry books sat untouched, waiting to be discovered. For the first time in decades, I wasn't invisible. I wasn't someone's mom. I wasn't a footnote in someone else's story. I was just Catherine. I took cooking classes, read poetry aloud in the park on Sundays, walked the river at sunset with a small thermos of coffee. I bought fresh flowers once a week. I slept through the night. I learned to enjoy silence without fearing it. Ryan didn't call, didn't write, and I didn't expect him to. That version of him, the boy I raised, the man I tried to reach, he didn't exist anymore. Or maybe he never had. What I had instead was time, space, clarity, the quiet beauty of being wholly responsible for myself. 3 months passed in peaceful rhythm. I started taking Spanish lessons online, joined a book club, made a few tentative friends who didn't know me as a mother, only as a woman rebuilding something sacred. Then, one afternoon in October, Rita handed me a note. "Someone called asking for you," she said, her voice low. "Said he was your son. He sounded desperate." I stared at the note. I didn't feel fear. I didn't feel guilt. I felt nothing. Just a quiet certainty. Whatever Ryan wanted now, he would have to face the woman I had become, not the one he used to take for granted. That woman was gone, and in her place stood someone who finally knew how to take up space, without apology. Have you ever reached a breaking point like this? A moment when you finally chose yourself over being taken for granted? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Your story might resonate with someone else who's still finding the courage to let go. If this story moved you, inspired you, or made you think differently about love and respect, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss more powerful stories like this one.